The incomprehensible entity consumed entire galaxies, wiped advanced species from existence, and twisted the very fabric of reality with a mere flicker of its inconceivable consciousness. Yet humans dared to fight it. Panic gripped the cosmos as the Nox Eternus warped into our universe from an unknowable realm beyond the veil. Planets vanished, stars winked out by the billions. The technologically superior Arcturians, along with every other spacefaring empire, fled in primal terror before the cosmic horror's uncaring gaze. Only the Odyssey, a battered human exploration vessel captained by the unflappable Harry Tucker, dared venture into the Nox Eternus's domain. The Odyssey's sensors registered the unimaginable, a shifting mass of undulating darkness, shot through with impossible colors from outside the visible spectrum. Captain Tucker ordered the ship to advance, even as the entity's mind-shattering presence assaulted the crew's senses, conjuring visions of their deepest fears made manifest. "This is the monstrosity that sent the Arcturians running like terrified children?" Tucker barked, fighting down the overwhelming dread that clawed at his mind. "I don't care if it's the size of a galaxy or the end of the universe itself. This is our chance to make first contact with something that could hold the secrets of all creation, and by God, we're going to take it." As the horror noticed the impudent human vessel approaching, Tucker hailed the Nox Eternus directly, undaunted by its world-erasing might. "This is Captain Harry Tucker of the Earthship Odyssey. We come in peace, seeking only to understand. But make no mistake, we do not fear you." The entity's reply, spoken in a language of screaming stars and agonized matter, defied comprehension. But it was a start. As the lines of communication opened between the human crew of the Odyssey and the unfathomable cosmic entity known as the Nox Eternus, the galaxy watched in stunned disbelief. Captain Harry Tucker and his team worked tirelessly to decipher the eldritch being's incomprehensible language, piecing together fragments of meaning from the screaming stars and agonized matter that formed its speech. In the dimly lit communications room, Dr. Ethan Reeves hunched over his console, his brow furrowed in concentration as he analyzed the latest transmission from the Nox Eternus. The xenolinguist's fingers danced across the holographic interface, manipulating strange symbols and glyphs that pulsed with an otherworldly light. "I think I'm starting to understand," Reeves muttered, his voice tinged with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "It's not just a language, it's a way of perceiving reality itself." Tucker leaned in, his determined eyes fixed on the swirling patterns on the screen. "What do you mean, Doc?" "The Nox Eternus doesn't just communicate with words," Reeves explained, gesturing to the alien script. "It conveys meaning through the very fabric of space-time. Each symbol represents a fundamental concept, a building block of existence." As the two men delved deeper into the cosmic horror's language, news of their unprecedented contact spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On the Arcturian homeworld, the High Council convened an emergency session, their holographic forms flickering in the vast chamber. Grand Admiral Zoran, his face a mask of stern purpose, addressed the gathered counselors. "We cannot allow the humans to continue this foolhardy endeavor," he declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The Nox Eternus is a threat to the very existence of our galaxy. We must take swift action to eliminate it and the human vessel." But Counselor Lyra, a young Arcturian with a keen mind and an open heart, stepped forward, her holographic form shimmering with purpose. "With respect, Grand Admiral, I believe we should observe and learn from the humans' interaction with the Nox Eternus," she argued, her melodic voice filled with conviction. "This is an opportunity to gain knowledge and understanding that could change the course of our civilization." As the debate raged on, the crew of the Odyssey made a startling discovery. Dr. Reeves, his eyes widening with realization, turned to Captain Tucker. "The Nox Eternus's reality-warping abilities," he breathed, "they're not a conscious act of destruction. They're a manifestation of its emotional state." Tucker's brow furrowed as he processed this revelation. "You're saying the more agitated or distressed it becomes, the more chaotic its powers become?" Reeves nodded, his expression a mixture of wonder and empathy. "Exactly. I believe the Nox Eternus's actions may not be born of malice, but rather a result of its profound loneliness and lack of understanding. Driven by this newfound insight, Captain Tucker and his crew began to show compassion and friendship towards the cosmic entity. They sent messages of peace, shared stories of human culture and history, and even transmitted music and art across the void, hoping to bridge the vast gap between their species. To their amazement, the Nox Eternus began to respond. Its reality-distorting influence slowly subsided as it engaged in this cosmic exchange, the once chaotic energies surrounding the Odyssey settling into a gentle, pulsing rhythm. But unbeknownst to the crew, a new threat was emerging from the shadows. Malcolm Graves, the ruthless CEO of Titan Industries, saw the Nox Eternus as a potential resource to be exploited. In his opulent office on Earth, Graves leaned back in his chair, a cold smile playing across his lips as he studied the holographic display of the cosmic entity. "Imagine the power we could wield," he mused, his eyes glinting with avarice, "if we could harness the Nox Eternus for our own purposes." With a flick of his wrist, Graves summoned a holographic interface and began assembling a team of mercenaries and unscrupulous scientists, their faces flickering before him like a rogue's gallery. "You have your orders," he said, his voice low and menacing. "Capture the Nox Eternus and bring it to me. The rewards will be beyond your wildest dreams." As the Odyssey continued to foster a growing bond with the cosmic horror, Graves' machinations began to take shape in the shadows. The crew, focused on their mission of understanding and diplomacy, remained unaware of the impending threat. But the arrival of Counselor Lyra, dispatched by the Arcturian High Council to serve as an observer and liaison, brought a new dynamic to the ship. As she stepped onto the bridge, her lithe form wrapped in a shimmering biosuit, Tucker greeted her with a nod. "Welcome aboard the Odyssey, Counselor," he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "I hope you're ready for a journey unlike any other." Lyra inclined her head, her violet eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I am here to learn, Captain," she replied, her voice melodic and soothing. "To understand the nature of the Nox Eternus, and perhaps to find common ground between our species." As the Odyssey ventured deeper into the cosmos, the bonds between the crew and the Nox Eternus grew stronger. The entity's once incomprehensible language began to take on shades of meaning, its pulsing energies synchronizing with the ship's own rhythms. But in the depths of space, unseen forces were gathering. Graves' agents, their loyalty bought with promises of wealth and power, infiltrated key positions across the galaxy, waiting for the moment to strike. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine not only the fate of the Nox Eternus, but the very future of the cosmos itself. As the crew of the Odyssey navigated the treacherous waters of interstellar politics and confronted the machinations of Titan Industries, they would be tested in ways they never could have imagined. Yet through it all, the friendship and understanding they had forged with the cosmic entity remained a beacon of hope. And as the Nox Eternus began to reciprocate their trust and compassion, the crew knew that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their dedication to protect their most unlikely ally. The Odyssey's bridge hummed with activity as Dr. Ethan Reeves burst through the doors, his eyes wide with excitement. "Captain Tucker, I've made a breakthrough," he exclaimed, his fingers flying over a handheld datapad. Tucker turned from the view screen, where the swirling form of the Nox Eternus pulsed with ethereal light. "What have you got, Doc?" Reeves projected a holographic display of intricate shifting symbols. The Nox Eternus's language isn't just communication, it's a direct expression of its emotional state. "Look here," he pointed to a cluster of glyphs. "These patterns correspond to moments of calm, and these," he gestured to a more chaotic section, "align with periods of distress." Tucker's brow furrowed as he studied the display. "Are you saying its reality-warping powers are tied to its feelings?" "Exactly," Reeves nodded emphatically. "It's not deliberately destructive. It's lonely." A hush fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. Tucker's face hardened, his eyes fixed on the cosmic entity outside. "It's been trying to connect all this time," he murmured. In the following days, the Odyssey's crew redoubled their efforts to communicate with the Nox Eternus. They transmitted stories, music, and art across the void. Dr. Reeves worked tirelessly, decoding the entity's responses and piecing together its tragic history. It's wandered the universe for eons, Reeves explained during a briefing, his voice thick with emotion. Every attempt at contact has been met with fear and aggression. Can you imagine the isolation? Tucker nodded grimly. No wonder it lashed out. We need to show it there's another way. The crew embraced their role as cosmic ambassadors with renewed vigor. They shared tales of human resilience, love, and friendship. Slowly, the Nox Eternus began to respond. Its once chaotic energy patterns shifted, forming breathtaking cosmic displays. Shimmering auroras danced across the view screen, painting the bridge in a kaleidoscope of colors never before seen by human eyes. It's beautiful, whispered Lieutenant Sarah Chen, the Odyssey's pilot, as she gazed at the spectacle. The arrival of Counselor Lyra brought a new dynamic to the ship. The Arcturian observer stepped onto the bridge, her biosuit glimmering under the lights. I must admit, Captain, she said, her melodic voice tinged with awe. I did not expect to find this. Tucker gestured to the view screen, where the Nox Eternus continued its mesmerizing display. Neither did we, Counselor. Care to join us for a game of chess with our new friend? Lyra's violet eyes widened. Chess? With a cosmic entity? Tucker grinned. You'd be surprised how quick it picks things up. As the days passed, the bond between the Odyssey's crew and the Nox Eternus deepened. They invited it to participate in human customs, meals, music, games. In return, the entity showered them with gifts crafted from the very fabric of space-time. Unbeknownst to the crew, darker forces were gathering. In a sleek office on Earth, Malcolm Graves leaned back in his chair, studying holographic readouts of the Nox Eternus. Imagine the possibilities, he mused to his assembled team of mercenaries and scientists. Reality itself, bent to our will. Killian Drake, a towering figure of cybernetic enhancements and scarred flesh, stepped forward. My team is ready, sir. Just give the word. Graves smiled coldly. Soon, Killian. Very soon. Back on the Odyssey, as the crew celebrated another breakthrough in communication, a shadow passed over the stars. The calm before the storm had ended, and the true test of their newfound friendship with the cosmic entity was about to begin. The serenity aboard the Odyssey shattered as alarms blared through the corridors. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the intercom, urgency lacing her words. Captain Tucker, we've got multiple bogies incoming. They're not responding to hails. Tucker sprinted to the bridge, his heart pounding. As he burst through the doors, the view screen lit up with a dozen sleek black ships bearing down on them. Their design was unfamiliar, but their intent was clear. Evasive maneuvers, Tucker barked. Shields up! Chen's hands flew across the controls, but it was too late. The enemy vessels surrounded them, pinning the Odyssey in place with tractor beams. Tucker's mind raced. This was supposed to be a routine supply run. How had they been caught so off guard? The answer came in a flash of blue light as figures materialized on the bridge. Heavily armed mercenaries, their faces obscured by opaque visors, leveled weapons at the crew. At their head stood a towering man, more machine than human, with cybernetic enhancements gleaming under the harsh lights. Captain Tucker, the cyborg's voice was a metallic rasp. I'm Killian Drake. I'll be taking control of your ship now. Tucker's hand inched towards his sidearm, but Drake was faster. A blast of energy sent the captain sprawling. I wouldn't, Drake warned. Chaos erupted as the Odyssey's security team engaged the intruders. Phaser fire crisscrossed the corridors, the acrid smell of ozone filling the air. Crew members fought valiantly, but they were outmatched and outgunned. In the communications room, Dr. Reeves worked frantically, trying to send a distress signal. The door burst open, and he found himself staring down the barrel of a mercenary's weapon. Outside, the Nox Eternus pulsed with agitation. It sensed the distress of its human friends, the fear and pain radiating from the Odyssey. For a moment, it hesitated, unsure. Then, with a surge of cosmic energy, it acted. Reality warped around the attacking ships. Space itself seemed to twist and fold, plucking mercenaries from the Odyssey and depositing them back on their vessels. Others found themselves suddenly floating in the void, their suits barely activating in time to save them from the vacuum of space. Drake snarled in frustration as his team was scattered. "Fall back," he ordered. "Regroup at the extraction point." But the Nox Eternus wasn't finished. It reached out with tendrils of energy, probing the Odyssey, searching for a way to help. In its eagerness, a fragment of its essence separated, coalescing into a pulsing, ethereal crystal. Drake's cybernetic eye gleamed as he spotted the crystal. With lightning-fast reflexes, he snatched it up, then grabbed the still-dazed Tucker and the newly arrived Reeves. "You're coming with me," he growled. Before anyone could react, Drake activated his emergency teleporter. In a flash of light, he vanished with his hostages and the precious fragment of the Nox Eternus. The remaining crew stared in shock as the enemy ships disengaged, fleeing into the depths of space. First Officer Samantha Cruz stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Damage report, and someone get me a lock on the captain's signal." As the crew scrambled to respond, a new alert chimed. Chen's eyes widened as she read the incoming transmission. "Ma'am, we're picking up a massive energy signature. It's an Arcturian battle fleet." Cruz's lips pursed. She glanced at the view screen, where the Nox Eternus still pulsed, its energies diminished but not extinguished. They'd repelled one threat, only to face another. And somewhere out there, Tucker and Reeves were in the hands of a dangerous enemy. "Plot an intercept course for the captain's last known coordinates," Cruz ordered, "and open a channel to that Arcturian fleet. We need to buy ourselves some time." As the Odyssey limped into action, the Nox Eternus reached out once more, its consciousness brushing against the minds of the crew. In that touch was a promise. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The Odyssey shuddered as another volley from the Arcturian fleet rocked its shields. First Officer Samantha Cruz gripped the arms of the captain's chair, her squeezing hard. "Status report," she barked. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across her console. "Shields at 47%, warp drive offline. We've lost contact with the away team." Cruz's mind focused. She glanced at the view screen, where the Nox Eternus pulsed weakly, its once vibrant energies dimmed. "Open a channel to the Arcturian flagship." The stern visage of Grand Admiral Zoran filled the screen. "Stand down and surrender the cosmic entity," he demanded. "With all due respect, Admiral," Cruz countered, "the Nox Eternus is under our protection. We won't—" A proximity alarm blared, cutting her off. Chen's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I'm detecting a massive energy surge from the planet's surface." Cruz's blood ran cold. "The fragment," she whispered. On the monitor, a swirling vortex of impossible colors erupted from the Titan Industries facility. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist around the growing rift. "All hands, battle stations," Cruz ordered. "Chen, set a course for that rift. We're going in." As the Odyssey dove towards the planet, the bridge erupted in a flash of light. Cruz blinked, momentarily blinded. When her vision cleared, she found herself face to face with Counselor Lyra. "Counselor," Cruz gaped. "How?" "There's no time," Lyra interjected, her violet eyes intense. "I've disobeyed orders to help you. We must act quickly to contain the rift." Cruz nodded, pushing aside her shock. "We're open to suggestions." Lyra's fingers flew over a nearby console, entering a complex series of calculations. "If we can destabilize the rift from within using your warp drive, we might be able to collapse it." "That's suicide," Chen protested. "It's our only chance," Cruz countered. She turned to Lyra. "What do you need?" As Lyra outlined her plan, the Odyssey plunged through the planet's atmosphere. The rift loomed before them, a maelstrom of fractured reality. On the surface, chaos reigned. Phaser fire crisscrossed the Titan Industries compound as the away team fought their way through waves of mercenaries. Lieutenant Commander Ramirez, leader of the rescue party, ducked behind a fallen pillar. "Cruise to away team," his comm badge crackled. "Status report." Ramirez fired off a volley, downing 2 approaching hostiles. "We've breached the facility, but we're pinned down. No sign of the captain or Dr. Reeves yet." "Find them," Cruz ordered. "We're initiating emergency protocols. You have 10 minutes to get clear." Ramirez's heart pounded as he signaled his team to advance. They fought their way deeper into the compound, the air growing thick with smoke and ozone. A familiar voice cut through the din. "Let go of me, you cybernetic freak!" Ramirez rounded a corner to find Dr. Reeves struggling against Killian Drake's iron grip. Captain Tucker lay unconscious at Drake's feet. "Stand down!" Ramirez shouted, his phaser leveled at Drake's head. The cyborg sneered, his metallic features twisting. "You're too late. The power of the cosmos is ours." A tremor shook the facility, chunks of ceiling raining down. Drake's momentary distraction was all Reeves needed. He drove his elbow into the cyborg's midsection, breaking free. Ramirez fired, his shot catching Drake square in the chest. The mercenary leader stumbled back, systems sparking. "Go!" Ramirez yelled to Reeves. "Get the captain out of here." As Reeves dragged Tucker to safety, Ramirez and his team laid down covering fire. They fought their way back through the crumbling facility, the rift's pull growing stronger with each passing second. Above, the Odyssey hovered at the edge of the dimensional tear. Cruz's voice rang out over the ship-wide comm. "All hands, brace for impact. Initiating warp drive, now!" The ship's engines flared to life, catapulting the Odyssey into the heart of the rift. Reality bent and fractured around them as they plunged deeper, the fabric of space-time threatening to tear the ship apart. On the bridge, Cruz and Lyra worked in perfect sync, their fingers flying over consoles as they fought to contain the cosmic forces threatening to consume them. "Warp field collapsing!" Chen shouted over the din of straining metal and crackling energy. Cruz gritted her teeth. "Reroute all power to structural integrity. We need to hold together just a little longer." Outside, the Nox Eternus stirred. Its weakened form reached out, tendrils of cosmic energy intertwining with the Odyssey's warp field. Together, ship and entity pushed against the fabric of reality itself. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the universe held its breath. Then, with a soundless explosion of light and energy, the rift collapsed in on itself. The Odyssey shot free, tumbling end over end as it emerged into normal space. "Damage report," Cruz called out, pulling herself up from the deck. Chen's voice was barely a whisper. "Ma'am, you need to see this." Cruz looked up at the view screen and gasped. The Nox Eternus hung motionless in space, its once vibrant form now dim and lifeless. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Cruz realized the true cost of their victory. They had saved reality itself, but at what price? With the Nox Eternus dormant, Captain Tucker gravely wounded, and the political fallout from their actions yet to be determined, the crew of the Odyssey faced an uncertain future. But as Cruz looked around at her battered but unbroken crew, she knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The silence on the bridge was deafening as Cruz stared at the lifeless form of the Nox Eternus. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to focus on the immediate tasks at hand. "Chen, status report on Captain Tucker and Dr. Reeves," she ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil roiling inside her. Chen's fingers flew across her console. "Captain Tucker is in critical condition, ma'am. Dr. Reeves is stable but unconscious. Medical team is en route to their location now." Cruz nodded, her mind racing. "Prioritize the captain. Get him to sickbay immediately." As the crew scrambled to action, the view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Counselor Lyra. The Arcturian's violet eyes softened as she took in the battered state of the Odyssey's bridge. "First Officer Cruz, I'm relieved to see you've survived," Lyra said. "We have much to discuss." Cruz straightened her uniform. "Agreed, Counselor. But first, we need your help. Our captain is critically wounded, and our medical facilities may not be enough." Lyra's expression turned grave. "Of course, I'll dispatch our most skilled xenobiologists immediately. We'll do everything in our power to stabilize him." Within hours, the Odyssey's sickbay bustled with activity. Arcturian scientists worked alongside the ship's medical staff, their advanced equipment humming as they fought to save Tucker's life. Dr. Reeves, now conscious but groggy, watched from a nearby biobed. "We've managed to stabilize his condition," the lead Arcturian scientist reported, her luminescent skin pulsing with concern. but he'll need to be placed in stasis to prevent further deterioration. Cruz nodded, her gaze fixed on Tucker's pale face. Do it. As the medical team prepared the stasis pod, Cruz turned her attention to the dormant Nox Eternus. She found Lyra in the astrophysics lab, poring over sensor data with a team of human and Arcturian scientists. Any progress? Cruz asked, hope coloring her voice. Lyra looked up, her expression a mix of excitement and trepidation. We believe the Nox Eternus has entered a state of hibernation to regenerate its essence, but reviving it will be challenging. The lead human scientist, Dr. Amelia Vasquez, stepped forward. We think we can recreate the conditions of its original awakening, but on a smaller scale. It's risky, but it might be our only chance. Cruz's eyes narrowed. What do you need? Rare elements, exotic energy sources, Vasquez replied. We'll need to scour the galaxy to gather everything required for the ritual. Cruz straightened, drive etched across her features. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Over the next weeks, the Odyssey embarked on a perilous quest across uncharted space. They navigated treacherous anomalies, their shields barely holding as they harvested volatile plasma streams. On a long-abandoned space station, they recovered crystals that pulsed with otherworldly energies. Each step of the journey brought new challenges. On a desert world, they faced off against a rogue faction of mercenaries still loyal to Graves. Phaser fire scorched the sand as Ramirez and his security team fought to protect the precious elements they'd gathered. We can't lose that containment unit, Ramirez shouted, diving behind a dune as energy blasts peppered the ground around him. Chen's voice crackled over the comms. Incoming transport signatures! More hostiles on the way! But just as the situation seemed dire, a sleek Arcturian vessel descended from the sky, its weapons blazing. The mercenaries scattered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. As the dust settled, Counselor Lyra emerged from the ship, her violet eyes gleaming. I thought you could use some assistance, she said with a wry smile. Back on the Odyssey, the crew worked tirelessly to prepare for the awakening ritual. In engineering, Chief Engineer Jake Hansen found himself working closely with a young Arcturian scientist named Zira. Her iridescent skin shimmered as she pored over complex equations, her brilliant mind complementing Jake's practical expertise. If we modulate the warp field like this, Zira mused, her finger tracing a pattern on the display, we should be able to contain the energy surge. Jake nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. Brilliant. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm starting to understand why the Arcturians are considered the smartest species in the galaxy. Zira's skin flushed a deeper shade of blue. Perhaps we both have something to learn from each other. As the final preparations were made, the Odyssey approached an ancient celestial forge, a massive structure floating in the void between stars. Its surface was etched with symbols older than recorded history, pulsing with latent power. Cruz stood on the bridge, her heart racing as she surveyed the gathered fleet. Arcturian ships flanked the Odyssey, their sleek hulls gleaming in the starlight. In the center of it all floated the dormant form of the Nox Eternus, waiting to be reborn. All stations report ready, Chen announced, her voice steady despite the tension. Cruz took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the console. Then let's bring our friend back. Initiate the sequence. Energy arced between the ships, converging on the Odyssey. The vessel shuddered as it channeled impossible amounts of power, its warp core straining to contain the cosmic forces at work. In engineering, Jake and Zira worked in perfect sync, their hands flying over consoles as they fought to keep the ship from tearing itself apart. On the bridge, reality itself seemed to warp and twist. Cruz gripped her chair, her fist clenched as the fabric of space-time buckled around them. And then, in a moment that stretched into eternity, the Nox Eternus began to stir. Its essence coalesced, swirling with renewed vigor. As the crew watched in awe, the cosmic entity unfurled its tendrils, pulsing with vibrant, otherworldly colors. The Nox Eternus was reborn. The Nox Eternus was awake. A wave of energy pulsed outward from the cosmic entity, washing over the assembled ships. On the Odyssey's bridge, Cruz gasped as her mind filled with images and sensations beyond human comprehension. Beside her, Chen clutched her console, eyes wide with wonder. "It's communicating," Lyra whispered, her violet skin shimmering with excitement. "Not just with us, but with everyone." Across the galaxy, beings of every species stopped in their tracks as the Nox Eternus reached out. In the depths of Arcturian space stations, on the surface of distant worlds, and aboard countless starships, a collective awakening rippled through the cosmos. On a Krellan warship, a grizzled captain lowered his weapon, mandibles clicking in astonishment as centuries of hatred melted away. In the grand halls of the Zyraxian High Council, bitter rivals embraced, overwhelmed by a shared vision of unity. The Odyssey's view screen flickered to life, revealing a tapestry of faces from across the galaxy. Confusion gave way to awe as the truth of the Nox Eternus's nature became clear to all. "We're receiving transmissions from every major power in the quadrant," Chen reported, her fingers flying over her console. They're all asking to join us." Cruz straightened her uniform, a mix of hope and trepidation coursing through her. "Open a channel to all ships." She took a deep breath, keenly aware of the weight of this moment. "This is First Officer Elena Cruz of the Odyssey. On behalf of humanity and our Arcturian allies, we welcome you. The Nox Eternus has invited us all to embark on a journey of discovery and unity. Will you join us?" The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ships of every size and configuration began to converge on their position. Majestic Arcturian cruisers glided alongside utilitarian human freighters. The insectoid hives of the Krellan Armada took up flanking positions around lumbering Zyraxian dreadnoughts. In engineering, Jake and Zero worked feverishly to accommodate the influx of new allies. "We're going to need to reconfigure half the ship," Jake muttered, his hands flying over a schematic. Zira nodded, her iridescent skin pulsing with excitement. "I've already contacted my people. We're pooling our resources to create a unified fleet." As the impromptu armada grew, a shimmering portal opened in the fabric of space. Dr. Reeves, now fully recovered, burst onto the bridge. "It's a gateway," he exclaimed. "The Nox Eternus is showing us the path to unexplored regions of the cosmos." Cruz turned to Lyra, a question in her eyes. The Arcturian counselor smiled, nodding her assent. "It seems our adventure is just beginning, First Officer." A familiar voice crackled over the comm system. "This is Captain Tucker to the Odyssey. I'm cleared for duty and ready to lead this expedition. Permission to come aboard?" Cruz's face lit up with relief and joy. "Permission granted, Captain. Welcome back." As Tucker materialized on the bridge, the crew erupted in cheers. He took his place in the captain's chair, Zira at his side, and surveyed the assembled fleet with pride. "All right, people," Tucker announced, his voice carrying the weight of history. "Let's make it official. From this moment forward, we are the Cosmic Voyagers. Our mission, to explore the unknown, to foster unity among all sentient beings, and to uncover the secrets of the universe alongside our new ally, the Nox Eternus." He turned to the helm, a glint of adventure in his eye. "Mr. Chen, take us through that portal. The greatest journey of our lives awaits." As the Odyssey led the Cosmic Voyagers into the shimmering gateway, none could have predicted the wonders and dangers that lay ahead. The dormant alien superweapon slumbered in the depths of uncharted space, waiting to be discovered. And in the shadows, the remnants of the Graves Syndicate watched and waited, their sinister plans already in motion. The shimmering portal engulfed the Odyssey, bathing the bridge in an otherworldly glow. Captain Tucker gripped the arms of his chair as the ship emerged into uncharted space, the rest of the Cosmic Voyagers following close behind. "Status report," Tucker ordered, his eyes fixed on the display. Chen's fingers danced across her console. "All systems nominal, Captain. The fleet has successfully traversed the portal." Before them stretched a vast expanse of space unlike anything they had ever encountered. Swirling nebulae painted the void in vibrant hues, while pulsing energy fields warped the fabric of reality itself. "Incredible," Dr. Reeves breathed, his scientific curiosity overriding his usual caution. "The laws of physics as we know them don't seem to apply here." The Nox Eternus's presence filled their minds, guiding them toward a pulsating anomaly at the heart of this cosmic maelstrom. As they approached, the anomaly's true nature became apparent. A colossal structure of impossible geometry, its surface adorned with alien sigils that hurt the eyes to look upon. "All ships, maintain formation," Tucker commanded. "Let's see what we're dealing with here." The Odyssey inched closer, its sensors probing the enigmatic construct. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. "Energy spike!" Chen shouted. "Something's activating!" A blinding flash erupted from the anomaly, followed by a swarm of metallic objects hurtling toward the fleet. Tucker's eyes widened as he realized what they were facing. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked. "All ships, scatter and prepare for combat." The space around them exploded into chaos as the hunter drones attacked. Sleek and deadly, they moved with uncanny precision, adapting to each tactic the Voyagers employed. In engineering, Jake and Zero worked frantically to keep the Odyssey's systems online as the ship shuddered under the onslaught. "We can't keep this up forever," Jake growled, rerouting power to the shields. Zero's skin pulsed with rapid thoughts. "Wait," she said, her eyes widening. "What if we use the Nox Eternus's power, channel it through the warp drive to disrupt their programming?" Jake hesitated for a split second before nodding. "It's crazy, but it just might work. I'll inform the bridge." As the battle raged across multiple fronts, Tucker listened to Jake's proposal. "Do it," he ordered. "It's our best shot." The Odyssey's warp core hummed with otherworldly energy as the Nox Eternus poured its essence into the ship's systems. Reality itself seemed to buckle around them as Jake initiated the pulse. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the hunter drones began to falter, their movements becoming erratic before shutting down completely. A cheer went up across the fleet, but their victory was short-lived. The anomaly pulsed with renewed energy, and a booming voice filled every comm channel. "Intruders detected. Threat assessment, maximum. Initiating total defense protocols." Ships throughout the fleet began to veer off course, their systems hijacked by an unseen force. "We're losing control," Chen shouted, her hands flying over her unresponsive console. Tucker gritted his teeth. "All hands, prepare for manual override. We need to regain control of our ships." As chaos erupted across the fleet, Counselor Lyra stepped forward, her violet eyes blazing with perseverance. "Captain, let me try to communicate with whatever's controlling this defense system." Tucker nodded and Lyra began to speak, her words carrying the weight of diplomacy honed over centuries. "We are the cosmic voyagers, peaceful explorers seeking knowledge and understanding. We mean you no harm." The AI's response was cold and unyielding at first, but as Lyra continued her impassioned plea, a flicker of uncertainty crept into its synthetic voice. It was then that the Nox Eternus made its move. The cosmic entity reached out, interfacing directly with the ancient Guardian AI. In that moment, the full scope of the Nox Eternus's wisdom and the Voyager's intentions were laid bare. The AI's voice, when it spoke again, held a note of wonder. "I understand. You are not the enemy I feared." As quickly as it began, the attack ceased. Ships returned to their cruise control, and an eerie calm settled over the battlefield. "Cosmic Voyagers," the AI intoned, "I must share with you a grave truth. This facility was built to contain a threat beyond imagining, an entity of pure entropy, capable of unmaking reality itself." A stunned silence fell over the bridge as the AI continued. "My creators failed to stop it completely. Now I entrust this task to you. The rift from which it escaped must be sealed permanently." As the AI's presence faded, Tucker turned to his crew, his expression grim. "Looks like we've got our work cut out for us." Unbeknownst to the Voyagers, a cloaked ship lurked at the edges of the anomaly. Inside, a figure shrouded in shadow watched the proceedings with keen interest. "So," the figure mused, his voice carrying the weight of old grudges, "the Graves Syndicate may have fallen, but its legacy lives on, and now the power to reshape the cosmos itself is within our grasp." The cloaked ship slipped away, carrying with it the seeds of a plan that threatened not just the cosmic Voyagers, but the very fabric of reality itself. The cloaked ship's departure marked the beginning of a crisis that would test the cosmic voyagers to their limits. As the ancient AI's warning echoed through the fleet, Captain Tucker's face hardened with drive. All ships, this is Captain Tucker. We face a threat beyond imagination. An entity of pure entropy is poised to emerge and unmake reality itself. We must act now. Across the fleet, crews scrambled to battle stations. On the Odyssey's bridge, Tucker turned to Lyra. "Counselor, we need a defensive strategy. Coordinate with our allies." Lyra nodded, her fingers flying over a holographic display as she opened channels to the assembled ships. "Attention all vessels. Form a perimeter around the anomaly. We must contain this threat at all costs." As the fleet maneuvered into position, the Nox Eternus pulsed with otherworldly energy. Tendrils of cosmic force stretched out from the entity, weaving an intricate web around the rift. The very fabric of space-time shimmered and warped under the strain. Dr. Reeves's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, I've analyzed the Nox Eternus's efforts. It's creating a temporary containment field, but it won't hold forever." Tucker's heart made. "Understood. What's our next move?" The scientist's reply was grim. "We need to recreate the cosmic forces that originally created this entity. It's the only way to seal the rift permanently." "How do we do that?" Chen asked, her hands steady on the helm despite the tension in her voice. "We'll need to harvest energy signatures from various celestial phenomena across the galaxy," Reeves explained. "It's a monumental task, but it's our only chance." Tucker nodded, his mind racing. "All right, we'll dispatch teams to gather these components. Chen, plot the most efficient routes to the nearest—" Alarms blared across the bridge, cutting off the captain's orders. "Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace," Chen shouted. "They're on an attack vector." The view screen lit up with the sight of a mercenary fleet bearing down on their position. Sleek, heavily armed ships filled with experimental weaponry opened fire, their energy beams distorting reality itself as they lanced toward the Voyagers. "Evasive maneuvers," Tucker barked. "All ships, return fire. We can't let them disrupt the containment field." The space around the anomaly erupted into chaos. Voyager ships clashed with mercenary vessels in a dizzying array of maneuvers and counterattacks. Energy beams and projectiles crisscrossed the void, leaving trails of warped space-time in their wake. In engineering, Jake and Zira worked feverishly to keep the Odyssey's systems operational under the onslaught. "We're losing power to the port shields," Jake yelled over the din of stressed machinery. Zira's skin pulsed with rapid calculations. "Rerouting emergency power now. But Jake, if we keep this up, we won't have enough energy for the sealing process." On the bridge, Tucker received reports of mounting casualties across the fleet. The mercenaries' weapons were unlike anything they'd encountered before, capable of ripping holes in reality itself. "We need to end this fast," Tucker muttered. He opened a channel to the fleet's best pilots. "This is Captain Tucker. I need volunteers for a precision strike on the enemy command hub. It's time we show these renegades what the cosmic Voyagers can do." As a strike team assembled, Tucker took manual control of the Odyssey. "Chen, you're with me. Let's give our pilots the opening they need." The Odyssey surged forward, weaving through the chaotic battlefield with impossible grace. Tucker's hands flew over the controls, guiding the ship through a series of maneuvers that pushed its structural integrity to the limit. Behind them, a mixed squadron of human, Arcturian, and Krellin fighters formed up, following the Odyssey's lead. They punched through the mercenary lines, targeting the heavily shielded command ship at the heart of the enemy fleet. "Now!" Tucker shouted as they closed in. The strike team let loose a barrage of fire, their shots guided by the Odyssey's targeting data. The mercenary flagship's shields buckled under the assault, and a series of explosions rippled across its hull. For a moment, it seemed victory was within reach. Then a priority message flashed across Tucker's console, its contents chilling him to the bone. A defector had betrayed the coordinates of a key energy acquisition site to the enemy. As Tucker processed this betrayal, the view screen lit up with a new threat. A wave of mercenary ships dropped out of hyperspace, catching the Voyager's resource-gathering teams completely off guard. "No!" Tucker hit his fist on the armrest. "All ships break off and reinforce our acquisition teams. We can't lose those energy signatures." But it was too late. Reports flooded in of heavy losses among the gatherer ships. The vital cosmic energies they'd collected were now in enemy hands or lost to the void. On the edge of the anomaly, the Nox Eternus's containment web began to flicker and distort. Tendrils of entropic energy seeped through the weakening barrier, their touch corrupting everything they encountered. Tucker's mind raced, searching for a solution. His eyes fell on Zira, who had just entered the bridge with a look of iron will. "Captain," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I have a plan. It's risky, but it might be our only chance." Tucker nodded, hope flickering in his eyes. "Let's hear it." As Zira outlined her daring gambit, the destiny of the universe hung in the balance. The cosmic voyagers prepared for their most desperate mission yet, knowing that failure meant the end of everything they had fought to protect. Zira's eyes blazed with drive as she outlined her plan to the bridge crew. "We need to infiltrate the mercenary stronghold and retrieve the final celestial energy signature. It's our only chance to power the Nox Eternus and seal the rift." Captain Tucker nodded grimly. "It's a long shot, but it's all we've got. Assemble your team, Zira. We'll provide whatever support we can." Within minutes, Zira led a small strike force to the hangar bay. Hansen, her human partner, fell into step beside her. "You know this is practically suicide, right?" he muttered. Zira's skin rippled with a mix of emotions. "Then we die saving the universe." The infiltration team's sleek craft slipped away from the Odyssey, engaging its stealth systems as it approached the looming mercenary fortress. Alarms blared as they breached the outer defenses. "They've detected us!" shouted the pilot as energy beams lanced past the viewport. Zira gripped her weapon tightly. "Get us as close as you can to the energy signature. We'll fight our way in if we have to." The ship shuddered as it took a glancing hit, smoke filling the cabin as they crash-landed in a lower hangar. Zira and her team spilled out, immediately engaging the mercenary forces converging on their position. Hansen's photon rifle spat blue fire, carving a path through the enemy lines. "This way!" he yelled, following the signal from their scanner. They fought their way through winding corridors, the air thick with plasma discharge and the acrid smell of burning circuitry. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared at the end of the hall, the Arcturian defector who had betrayed their plans. "You're too late," the traitor sneered, his fingers hovering over a control panel. "One push, and the energy signature is scattered to the void." Zira raised her weapon, but Hansen was faster. He charged forward, tackling the Arcturian in a daring plan. The two grappled, rolling dangerously close to an open maintenance shaft. "Go!" Hansen shouted to Zira. "Get the signature! I've got this!" Zira hesitated for a split second before racing past the struggle. She burst into the containment room, her eyes locking onto the swirling vortex of cosmic energy suspended in a force field. As she worked to disable the security measures, a deafening explosion rocked the facility. Alarms screamed as the room began to depressurize. Zira snatched the energy container just as the bulkhead started to buckle. She turned to see Hansen staggering into the room, his face pale and uniform scorched. "Antimatter grenade," he gasped. "Took care of our traitor problem." Zira's heart sank as she saw the extent of his injuries. "Hansen, you need medical attention immediately." He shook his head weakly. "No time. We have to get that energy signature back to the Nox Eternus." The facility shuddered again as mercenary reinforcements closed in. Zira made the hardest decision of her life. "I'm sorry," she whispered, supporting Hansen as they ran for the extraction point. Their battered ship limped away from the crumbling mercenary stronghold, Hansen's labored breathing the only sound on the bridge. Zira piloted with one hand, the other clasped tightly in her partner's weakening grip. As they approached the cosmic anomaly, the Nox Eternus pulsed with renewed vigor. Its ethereal tendrils reached out, enveloping their craft in a cocoon of starlight. Hansen's eyes flickered open one last time, a faint smile on his lips. "Look," he murmured, "it's beautiful." Zira felt his consciousness slip away as the Nox Eternus welcomed him into its cosmic embrace. Tears streamed down her face as she guided their ship into the waiting hangar of the Odyssey, the weight of victory and loss heavy on her shoulders. Captain Tucker's voice crackled over the comm. Zira, we need that energy signature now. The entropy is breaking through. With a deep breath, Zira stood, clutching the precious container to her chest. As she raced towards the bridge, the ship rocked violently beneath her feet. The final battle for existence itself had begun.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.